fishes, welcome back to another Musky Tales podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Twisted Ties and Jigs, so appreciate that. Today we have with us Jack Baker from the North American Ice Fishing Circuit, or easier to say, N.A.I.F.C.
I don't know if it's easier to say, but that's what it is.
That's what it is, yeah. So it rolls off the tongue. So, well, thanks for being here.
Glad to be here. We've been here a few years, and it's good to get back.
Yeah.
Love the chain, love channel.
Yeah, you got in just about 15 minutes ago, so thanks for jumping right into it.
Coming out of Northfield, Minnesota, we had a 6-hour drive. But like I say, glad to be here.
I know people love us, but that's a long way to go to come film. But we've got bigger and better things in the next couple days here, which we're going to talk about.
Got an N.A.I.F.C qualifier.
Yeah.
So kind of a 3-day gig.
Okay.
Friday night, we have a high school registration.
Okay.
And then we have a meet and greet, which is open to everybody. We come in and we talk easy ice fishing to begin with, and then we get real technical into the tournament side. We can talk pretty much about anything.
Okay.
Been tied to Team USA, so we can talk what they're doing in Europe or talk what they're doing here in the States.
Okay, yeah.
So we just started 2 years ago a high school division.
Okay.
So Friday night they come in and register, listen to a few rules, and then Saturday mornings, 8 to noon, the high school teams will be on the ice.
Okay.
And we get, depending on how many come, we take 20% of the field guaranteed to make the national championship. And when they come to the national championship, they compete for scholarships.
Okay.
And the way we do the scholarships is you get your money when you turn in your first semester's transcripts.
Okay.
Okay? Because the N.A.I.F.C covers the ice belt, so we can be in Montana or we can be in Vermont or anywhere in between. And multiple states have different jurisdictions on high school.
Okay.
So if I write you the check tomorrow, you may lose your amateur status as a high school. So no football, no basketball, no hockey, no whatever.
Right.
All right, but by going scholarships, you're not getting it until you're in college. We're not crossing anybody's lines.
Okay.
So that way it's fair for everybody across the country.
Okay.
So high school tomorrow night, registration, and on a Friday night,
Nice.
and then rules, and then Saturday they compete. We'll get them qualified. We hold the high school national championship the weekend after Christmas.
After Christmas, okay.
Because all the kids are on break. The presents have been opened. Mom's like, you've been around the house long enough. You're starting to wear on my nerves. Go hit the ice.
Yeah.
So we make it easy. Up at the championship, we go Thursday. We do seminars. Friday, they pre-fish in the morning. Then the afternoon, we do seminars, and we do the rules meeting Friday night. They compete on Saturday.
Yep.
Compete on Sunday.
Okay.
And during the seminars, we just talk about how to be a better angler. Some of it's tournament orientated, some of it's sponsor orientated, but it's just there to make the kids more aware of what the industry's about.
Okay.
We bring in people, bring in experts from different disciplines, and hopefully send them home a lot smarter than they showed up. Plus, they got some scholarship money to look forward to. So that's new and improved.
Okay.
So that's our Friday night. Saturday, again, the high school. Then Saturday afternoon, we do what we call Kids Ice Camp.
Okay.
And that's more for the younger kids or parents that are just getting into ice fishing. So we talk safety, we talk equipment. We go over everything. About 45 minutes in, we'll do it right here in the tackle shop. And we'll call it 2 o'clock, because 1 o'clock we do the indoor. 2 o'clock, we will send the kids out on the ice, and we have N.A.I.F.C pro staff out there, guys from Ice Team, guys from Team USA, and they'll show them on the ice what we talked about in here. So hands-on, get to be with some of the best anglers, on the ice. Saturday night, we do the rules meeting. Sunday morning from 8 until 1, we compete for what we call the qualifier. Top 5 teams get to the national championship. Everybody gets points. So if you get enough points, you'll get an invite to the championship. Done fishing at 1. back here to do the weigh-in at 2.
Mm-hmm.
And write checks. We pay 1 out of every 5 teams that's in gets a check.
Okay.
So,
That's good.
we're covering 20% of the field. We have product prizes too, but everybody's more interested in the dollars.
Right. Yeah.
We pay $100 for every team that's in. So if we have 20 teams, first place is worth $2,000. We got
Okay.
25 teams, $2,500.
Okay.
30 teams,
That's
$3,000, and
That's
you
the
can
flat formula.
you
huh?
can do the math from
Yeah,
there.
right.
Second place, I mean, if we're paying first place $2,000, second place is probably getting $1,000.
Okay.
So the guys can make some money.
Mm-hmm.
It is a circuit.
Mm-hmm.
We cover all of North America. We started in Minnesota, then we jumped out to Montana, went to West Yellowstone after rainbow trout,
Mm-hmm.
then over to Okoboji, Iowa, then Reedsburg, Redstone Lake in Wisconsin, and now we're down here on Antioch on the
Wow.
channel.
Yeah.
Next week we jump over to Michigan. We generally hold 1 tournament a state.
Okay.
So by the time we get to the national championship, we got 14, 15 states represented in Canada.
Wow. No kidding.
So
I didn't realize you did that many.
well, it was fun out in West Yellowstone. We had a team. You pick a state where you don't think an ice fishing team would come from. That came all the way to West Yellowstone to chase rainbows.
Okay.
Pick one.
My guess would be Florida.
Exactly. we had a team from Florida and a team from Arizona.
There you go. Yeah.
I had no clue.
Yeah. Go figure, huh?
Yeah. So.
Well, they don't get that down there, so they're just itching to ice fish. Maybe they're living in the wrong spot.
Well, they had heard about it. They
Yeah.
wanted to do it. It was the Florida guys. It was their first ice fishing adventure.
How'd they do?
Middle of the pack.
Okay, well, hey, better than the
Oh.
bottom of the barrel.
They had a fantastic time. In fact, they challenged the Canadians that they were going to bring more Florida teams next year than the
Okay.
Canadians were going to get
Yeah, right.
teams from Canada. So we'll see how
That's a good challenge,
we'll
right?
see how that challenge
works out.
goes
Yeah, I like
But-
that.
But that's kind of our weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We cover. Now we're 2/3 education, 1/3 competition. We do as much teaching on Friday night and Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Come on down. The only way to learn, and you got great anglers here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
got-
there are some good fishermen.
You got
and
sticks.
fisherwomen.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's sticks all over the place.
Yeah.
But the difference between them and the guys and gals that follow the circuit is these guys get out on the ice and compete.
Right.
That doesn't mean these guys aren't good anglers.
Mhm.
They can beat. If you check our records, we've been doing this. This is our 13th year.
Mm-hmm.
If you check our records, we have a lot of local teams that win
Right.
because it's hard to beat home cooking on home water.
Right.
You know every fish by name.
Yeah.
You know every brush pile, every rock.
Right.
And these guys come in and, sure, they've got some electronics and they try and figure a lake out. But
Mm-hmm.
you know when the fish bite when the wind's out of the east, and you guys know when the fish bite when it's coming out of the west.
Right.
They don't have that background. So
Right.
locals have a pretty good advantage.
Sure, yeah.
They can win. So.
Although this year I'm kind of curious and anxious to see how it plays out because we've been so limited on our ice so far that it almost, in my mind, it takes away that home field advantage because even though they know where the brush piles are and things like that, you still have the patterns and things like that
Sure.
to pay attention to, and they really haven't been able to get out there a
This
lot.
could
so.
almost qualify as early ice, even though we're in
Right,
January.
that's what we're thinking, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
But you got some great fish. We've had some
So,
fantastic fish come out of this lake.
Yeah.
Some big crops and good gills.
Yeah, yep.
So-
It's a good fishery in general. I didn't realize it was as good as it is until I started getting up here a little bit and seeing some of what the ice fishing
The guys look
world
forward to
brings
coming
to
here.
it. Do they? Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of those circle the calendar spots.
Well, I'm kind of curious then. So you talked about 14 to 16 other places. Where are, in your mind, some of the best, fisheries for crappie, bluegill in general? This may be one of
Well,
them, but where else is it
if-
really good fishing or big
if-
fish?
If you're in North Dakota,
Mm-hmm.
going up to Lake Metagoshi in the Turtle Mountains,
Mm.
I had a family cabin on there since 1957.
Okay.
My family
So
started.
you know the cribs out
kind
there.
of, kind of know the lake.
Yeah.
But we were telling everybody they're 9.5, 10, 10.5, 11-inch gills literally on every drop.
Mm.
Well, you hear that all over the place. I mean, that's a fisherman's story. These guys came up. I can remember Dave Ellis out of Michigan, national championship. He dropped down. His first pull was 10.5, and he was like, "I didn't
This
think
is
you were.
real.
Yeah,
Right,
I didn't
yeah.
think you were telling the truth."
Yeah.
But for a bluegill, just a lone bluegill factory, that thing is fantastic.
Okay.
Okoboji, Iowa, another great bluegill lake. The trick with Okoboji is it's clear water, as in gin clear water.
Okay.
We can see over 30 feet down.
Oh, wow.
The fish, I have no idea, could probably see 100 feet. And you really get an education. Those fish will humble
You
you.
got to work on it.
Because if there's anything in your presentation that isn't right,
Yeah.
they see it.
Yeah.
So you have to you have to be able to control your jigging motion, and you have to match it with what the fish. When I first started ice fishing, I live in Northfield, Minnesota. We have about 3.5 hours down to Okoboji.
Okay.
And this is back before you had a lot of underwater cameras. Okay, I'm not saying I'm old, but I've been around on the. Yeah. We would go to Okoboji to learn.
Okay.
Now, when I started tournament ice fishing, my partner was my 6-year-old daughter. And we were down there when she was 7, 8, 9. We'd go down just to get an education. Just watch the fish react to how we were jigging. And we'd fished out of a 2-person trap. So we're sitting right next to each other. It's not like somebody's 30 feet away fishing other fish. We were fishing the same fish. And we're both same rod, same jig, same bait, jig, 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 and those bluegills would come in and they'd look at us. But they wouldn't bite us. So I say, hey, I'm going to reel up, change. It's got to be a jig thing, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's got to be. So I reel up, clip off. I'm trying to tie one, and visually challenged. Got to have my cheaters.
Yeah.
And Greta, my daughter, goes, Dad, will you take this fish off? Well, she's 8.
Yeah.
And I'm doing okay, no, you're a tournament fisherman, take it off
There you
yourself.
go.
I mean, I can't be there all the time. And she says, I can't, it's too big. And I turn and look, and she doesn't have a bluegill. She's got a bluegill.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is what's been staring at us for a half hour, just rejecting us.
Right.
Well, of course, okay, give me that. I go back, Dad, what? Number 2.
Yeah.
Dad, what? Number 3.
right.
Dad, what? Number 4. I'm like, well, what did you do?
Right.
You're still, you didn't even change bait.
Right.
You're going down there with the same used worm. They've been rejecting us for a half hour. Just because I reel up, what are you doing? And you get your fishing wisdom from all different places at all different times. And she turns and she says, well, this is my 8-year-old. I found the song of the day. Well, what in the world do you mean, the song of the day? Well, she goes, I go out on the ice. I got 15 or so melodies. And I jig to this melody.
Oh, see.
And if they don't like it, I jig to this
There
melody.
you go.
And if
see?
they don't like that,
Yeah.
I jig to this melody.
Nice.
And she says, I found the song of the day. Well, what do?
Right.
You turn and you say, what's the song of the
Right.
day?
You got to work on it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I need a little, I'm not that proud. I want to catch one of them too.
Right, yeah.
And she says, well, it's Under the Sea by Little Mermaid. Doesn't do me a bit of good.
You got to learn that one.
Yeah, I'm looking for some
Checking your
Eagles or
songbook.
some Creedence.
Yeah,
I'm looking for something, but
Yeah.
not Under the Sea. So that was our first introduction to what 10 years, 11 years later became known as cadence, rhythm. If you check like the In Fisherman Ice Annual, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, all of a sudden they started talking about cadence and rhythm and jigging motions. And one of the things we do in Friday night seminars, one of the things we do with the kids clinic is I have jigging tubes.
Okay.
And we teach them how to jig.
Yep, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I don't remember the mermaid song though. You didn't sing that last time.
you don't tell everybody all the tricks at one time.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting. In the 2010 World Championships,
Okay.
we were up in Rhinelander, and going backwards, in 2009, we raised enough money to send Team USA to Poland.
Okay.
So we got back into world fishing.
All right.
And we went over there, and they went, we kind of took last.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of slapped us.
Okay.
We had no clue how to fish in Europe. But because we rejoined the World Federation, we got to bring them, and we brought them up to Rhinelander in 2010.
Okay.
And I was walking around with Russian,
You brought who to Rhinelander?
the Worlds. So
Okay.
we had Russia, Poland,
Really?
Kazakhstan,
Oh, okay. Did not know
Latvia,
that.
the Ukraine, Sweden, Norway, the world.
And they fished here.
And they fished here.
Yeah.
And back to that conversation about having them on your home water, little home
Right.
cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're over in Europe, you're fishing for what you and I'd call bait.
Okay.
The dace and roaches, and you may get into some yellow perch or an occasional zander or something coming through, but basically you're fishing small fish. You're really micro sizing this stuff. But we got them over here, and we had them on bluegills and crappies
Really?
in a little
That's that
deeper
different,
water.
huh? No kidding.
Yeah, and we went from last to first.
Oh,
we
wow.
we took the gold medals on home water.
Oh, hey,
But
hey.
that wasn't where I was going. But I was walking with the Russian coach, and we're just walking around watching guys fish, and he was like, yes, no, 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 no. Yeah, he's got a chance. Yes, no, no. And I'm like, okay. After we got done with what were you looking at? And he goes, well, vertical jigging motion. Okay. A little more, you know, I
Right,
mean,
right.
help me out. He goes, well, that guy over there can control his vertical motion to 1 millimeter. And I'm like, you know, I was impressed. I can't see 1 millimeter from 10 feet, you know, but that was just something. And the guy he pointed to was Mike Bodecker from Lansing, Michigan,
Okay.
Team USA. And 4 or 5 days later, Mike Bodecker's standing on the podium with the gold medal.
Yeah.
So I'd have to say that Russian knew what he was talking about.
Right, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, you're talking about getting your fishing knowledge a little here, a little here,
Right.
a little
Keep it in the
here,
box,
a little
yeah.
here. You know, you don't get it all at once.
Right.
You know, way back when.
I'm getting better by the minute right now. So.
Way back when, before the N.A.I.F.C existed, it was trap attacks.
Okay.
And that was where Greta and I were competing, and Gens would be talking.
Okay.
And he would do a weekly talk at all the different, and we just kept going and going. Well, every time we went, he basically had the same presentation. But it didn't mean the same thing to us because our
Picked
knowledge
up different
base
things, right?
was different week to week. So what he was talking about meant something different. So this Russian is talking about total vertical motion, okay, straight up and down. Well, you know, the brain goes off, and Pat Smith, one of the very first rod designers that really got into ice fishing, and I mean, he's one of the he's one of the guys that
Pioneers
really
of it,
pioneers set it up.
Yep.
He produced an article called Getting Your Dabble Down.
Okay.
And I think Mark Strand wrote it. You can find it on the net. But it was an interview with Pat. And in there, he talked about taking a slip bobber and running, you know, just setting it up, but not with the knot on it, just so your line could go, and practice jigging so that slip bobber stayed straight up and down while you jigged. Okay? Because if you jig with your wrist, that's an arc. If you jig with your elbow, just like a door opening
Right,
and closing, it's an arc.
Yeah.
Okay? So you've got to jig so that you're moving straight up and down.
Right.
If you really get into it, you jump on the net and you look up zooplankton,
Okay.
daphnias and copods, which are your most zooplanktons that are in there. There's
Okay.
something like 1,000 different daphnias.
All right.
But you watch them go through the water,
and you duplicate that motion,
Wow.
which is why you use the jigging tubes.
All right.
Now, everybody's got a jigging tube. There's no excuse for not knowing what your jig and your bait is doing. Because you walk in the bathroom, you take the top off the back of the
Okay.
toilet, and you practice jigging.
There you go.
Okay? You got the seat right there.
Nice.
It's just like fishing.
Yeah.
Okay? Our jigging tubes are a little more high tech
Right,
than
yeah,
that.
right.
You know.
Don't do it in the bowl though, right?
No, not the bowl.
All right.
No, it throws off the
Doesn't
bait.
work.
Throws off the bait.
So,
But anyway, Pat had talked about this in this article.
mm-hmm.
Well, after listening to the Russian talk, because I'd read the article a couple of years before, all of a sudden, wait a minute.
Right.
I've heard this before.
Right, yeah.
I've heard this from another authority. And, you know, you're piecing your fishing knowledge together. You know, we were at a sale at a tackle shop up in Blaine, up in Minnesota. Just stopped in, and Gens was there, and we had our jigging tube. We were doing stuff with kids, and he walked over, and we hadn't talked about any of this. He walked over and jigged, and he grabbed the slip bobber, and that bobber just sat there just straight up and down. It wasn't flopping around left and right. So we used that with the kids. I put the jigging tube in, and we get the kids moving, and that bobber, you know, most of the time it's flopping around like it's,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
and then they slowly figure it out. You know,
Right.
you can't do this, you know. So it was
Just finite amounts too.
right,
not
very
obviously-
small,
yeah,
very small.
Never
and-
realized that. Okay.
Well, a lot of guys have gone to using spring bobbers for strike
Popular, hear that,
detection.
yeah.
But what they don't understand is that spring bobber is super soft. So they're up there giving her heck, jig, 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 and that spring bobber is acting like a shock absorber. And it's not transmitting all of this.
Okay. So,
So
you're moving
it's
more
slowing,
than you realize.
it's slowing it down and softening their jigging motion
right.
just because that spring bobber is on.
Okay.
And, you know, they're like, well, I catch more fish because of that spring bobber. I can see them. And it's like, no, you're catching more fish because you found the song of the day.
Right. Exactly.
You,
Yep,
you've
it's
slowed
telling
that
me,
down.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can have the right color jig, the right size jig, you know, the right bait on it. But if that fish, you know, fish has got a brain the size of a pea. They cannot figure out 2 + 2. They got no brain power for that. But they're very quick at patterning. Well, if they're used to eating a zooplankton that moves like this, and you're down there doing this, even if you look like a zooplankton,
Right.
they don't want anything to do with you. They'll just sit there and look at you. So, you know, there's more to matching the hatch than
Right.
just color.
Right. Exactly.
You
Oh,
know, there's a guy out wrote bluegill biology,
yeah. Okay.
and they're talking about the lateral line hooked to the air bladder of that bluegill. And we live in the North Country. We're up here with the ice. We've all seen a snowplow go down the road, semi go down the road, and what's behind it?
Salt and all that.
All kinds of stuff in the air. Well, when Mr. Musky and Mr. Northern go through the water, they're creating that same turbulence. That bluegill's air bladder hooked, you know, all right. If he cuts that trail, he can tell that Northern that Musky came through there. And I mean, it's 20 minutes later, and they still
Really?
know. Yeah,
Wow.
it's
That sensitive.
it is that sensitive. So when you're down there vibrating like this,
Right.
and that bluegill knows you're supposed to be vibrating like this,
Right.
that's why you're rejected. He's going to walk up and he's going to look at you.
Right.
He drive you nuts. He ain't gonna bite you.
Right.
You know.
Huh.
You need to find the song of the day.
There you go.
Whatever
That's
it
the
is,
message,
whatever it is,
Yeah.
you know.
That's good stuff.
And it's
The N.A.I.F.C. through its history, I can't say has made any new products,
Okay.
but we've been the fishermen that fish us are on the cutting edge. Most of the techniques that you see that are talked about, like with underwater cameras, were developed by the teams. our teams out there were the first ones to use plastic.
Mm.
You know, they didn't make the plastics.
Okay.
You know, I'm not claiming they developed them,
Right.
but they figured out how to use them. They were the first ones out there with tungsten.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they figured, you know, they didn't make the tungsten, they
Right.
bought the tungsten.
Right.
But a lot of the stuff, I mean, now you see everybody using drills to drill with. You know, that's the latest craze for the last 2 or 3 years.
Seems to be, right?
Yeah, that's 8-year-old stuff on the trail.
Okay.
So it's just another reason to come out and fish
See
the
what they're
N.A.I.F.C.
doing, yeah.
is to find out what's going to hit the market 5 years from now.
Right,
Because
yeah.
that's what these guys are doing.
Huh, interesting.
Most of your tournament guys, in marketing terms, are your early adapters and your innovators. They make up about 4%, 5% of the market, but they lead the other 96%.
Right.
You know, so you see a lot of stuff. As tournament director, Sunday morning, we do a complete inspection. If it's big enough to hold a fish, open it. So as tournament director, I get to see what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
You know, you get to see what's current, and some stuff you look at, you have no idea what they're doing.
Okay.
And that's what you do on the drive home, is what in the world were they doing with that?
Interesting, yeah.
And then you kind of like, okay.
And is there always new stuff that you're seeing then, obviously, it sounds like?
Fishermen are always trying
Yeah,
something.
interesting.
They're always, tournament guys are always trying to figure out how to beat,
Okay.
you know.
Sure.
And if you're if you're a true tournament fisherman, you're not trying to beat the guy next to you, you're trying to beat the clock.
Okay.
If I put more fish on the deck than you do in the same period, chances are I'm going to have
Right,
more to
more
choose from,
right.
bigger ones to choose from, and I'm going to win.
Okay.
So if I can beat that clock,
Yeah.
probably going to beat you.
Okay.
So fishing efficiency, how fast can you get up and down the water column? You know, if something goes wrong, do you know exactly where your backup is? You just pull it and keep right on going. And a lot of this stuff you develop over the years.
Sure. You
Nobody
kinda
just,
learn,
nobody just automatically, you know. When we started tournament fishing, we had one flasher. In a couple of years, we had 2 flashers. Then we got a backup battery for those flashers. Then we got a 3rd flasher, you know, and some of those were tournament wins and you got prizes, and some of them you just made a purchase, you know. And you just, you know, our first tournament we had a auger. Then we had 2 augers.
Yeah.
Then we had a hand auger to back up the 2 augers.
Right,
You know, you learn stuff as you go along.
Absolutely.
You know, we were up in Michigan at a tournament that we'd gone to bring product and do some stuff, not really gonna tournament fish. And they had an opening. They said, well, why don't you and Greta? So we gave it a whirl, and we caught our group bluegills, and I'm going to say they were the best bluegills in the tournament. We had to go get crappies, and it was slushy. And we just threw everything in the trap, jumped on the sled, hammered it, going across the ice, slush pots, and the trap dug in.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, our auger was cartwheeling past the snowmobile.
All right.
Well, lessons many. 1, you tie that down.
Right.
Okay. 2, I'm mad as a hornet. I walk out in that slush and I grab that auger and rip it out of the slush and I pull the gas lines out. Dumped all the gas out.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Okay. Well, some people believe smell matters.
Right.
Your hands are full of gas, you
Yeah.
can't touch bait.
Right.
All right, so 2, we didn't have backup gas.
Yeah.
You know. So what did we learn? The next tournament out, we had an aluminum coffee mug, so it wasn't plastic that the gas could eat through,
Okay.
and rubber band to the side were 3 sets of latex gloves. So if we did have to touch that gas and something you know, so you pick up your education, you know, it cost us,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
We didn't catch any crappies. We had to
Right.
go fish holes other people had already fished.
Right.
So, you know.
Well, at least you didn't have to bait your stuff, so your
But,
daughter
yeah,
probably did that
here,
for you.
get this. Come on, let's go.
So.
So, a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. How many years have you been director of the N.A.I.F.C?
going into 13.
13 years. Okay.
13.
And how'd you get into it? What attracted you to the
Well,
tournament stuff? And,
We started fishing The trap attacks. And like I say, we started when Greta was 6.
And what are trap attacks?
They're the
That was the
tournaments.
circuit.
That
Okay,
was the
that was-
circuit.
okay,
Instead of
that-
calling it the N.A.I.F.C,
Yep.
they called it trap
Okay.
attacks. And Clam and Ice Team ran it.
Okay.
And Ice Team at that time was, I forget exactly who, but Lindy, Arctic Cat, Mr. Heater, Strike Master, Clam. There were 2 others. I think there were 7 total. Aquaview was in there. Vexlar was in there.
Okay.
And they just formed this up, and they had their circuit, and we fished it. And like I say, Greta started at 6. At 9, we made the national championship. And of course, everybody says, "Well, yeah, Dad, you did it." You know, she came in. We were in Devil's Lake, North Dakota, fishing walleyes, and I admit, I drove the Suburban.
Okay.
No, she's 9.
Yeah.
I admit, I ran the auger.
Yeah.
Because 9-year-old hooks up an auger, it becomes a circus ride.
Okay.
So I drilled 11 holes, set the auger down, turned. All the walleyes we needed to make the national championship, she had laying on the ice. So when I say she qualified, I mean she qualified.
Yeah.
You know, she's a great fisherman. I told you we got done with Redstone last weekend. One of the tournaments back in the trap attack days, we were on Redstone. She put 94 crappies on the ice in 4 hours and 28 feet of water. So she can fish.
Yeah.
So I don't discount. In fact, you got a gal here. She went through high school qualifying on channel last year.
Yep. Mary.
Mary, and she's a good fisherman. And she'll be here tomorrow. Well, she'll be here on Saturday to compete again. She made the national championships and did well. Won the speed reeling contest in her division.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, took an Aquaview home for that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, she had a good time. Hopefully learned a few things.
Right.
But no, I don't discount anybody that steps on the ice. If they're out there competing, they can
Absolutely.
they can win.
And how are you promoting that whole either collegiate or high school division then? I mean, what are you doing to bring in the younger faces? How are you getting the word out there?
We call it the high school division. Okay, that does not mean your high school has to have a fishing team.
Okay, that's good to know. then.
Okay, it just means somebody's dad or mom, a parent, an adult, a coach, can take 2 kids. You got a team. Now, Wisconsin has official high school teams. I think they're the
For
only-
ice fishing.
For ice
yeah,
fishing.
See, we don't,
Yeah.
we have the bass stuff here,
Right.
but yeah.
Well, I wear a lot of hats. All right.
Yeah, I know you're on the bass circuit stuff too.
And in the summer, I tournament direct for the Masters Walleye Circuit.
Yep.
I've also tournament directed for the N.A.B.C, North American Bass Circuit.
Yeah.
That gets me part of the Bass Federation and part of the Walleye Federation.
Okay.
So we do other outside tournaments. But I was up doing an SAF, Student Angler Federation / FLW state tournament. And all these high school coaches, it was bass, open water, midsummer, come up and they look at me and they go, "You're the ice guy, aren't you?" Oh, okay, I'm the ice guy. Yeah. How come you're not doing this in high school? Well, let's do it.
Right. Yeah.
So that was how well thought out that was.
Yeah. Right.
Boys,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah.
So we just started inviting any teams we can get, because
Right.
until the high school championship is full, if you got 2 kids and a parent / coach, all you got to do is get a hold of me.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I mean, it just and we'll get an invite, and you come to the national championship and compete for scholarships.
That's good stuff.
We don't turn anybody down.
Right.
You know, let's go.
So for our viewers, aside from getting them to like, share, and subscribe, we want them to pass today's show on
Right.
to their high school friends or anybody that fishes that's
Right.
a
Right.
younger age that can get involved with this and
Right.
find a friend to go fishing.
Getting the word out really comes down to, hey, shout it from the mountaintops.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
let's go.
Spread the word and get it out there.
Get it out there. Get them talking. The bass, obviously the summer bass leagues for the high school is you get more in there, more concentrated, and you can talk to more kids at one time or coaches. But it's growing. We've had We've done it twice, 2 national championships, and the first year we had 43 teams registered, and that was Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. And of course, 3 days before the tournament, in comes the 22-inch blizzard.
Okay, yeah.
And goes
Never fails.
straight across North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, into Michigan. Well, nobody
Covers
could
it all.
nobody could even get there. So we ended up with 11 teams, which, it's disheartening not to have the 43. But if I'm running a tournament and one shows up, I'm going to run it just the same way as if 100 shows up. So we ran all the seminars, we did everything for those kids, and that's just the way we're going to roll.
Right.
You know, it's the same thing with kids clinics that we do for the ice camp. If you get one kid that shows up, or you get 100 kids that show up, they're going to get the same attention. You know, we do give out free fishing rods to any kid that shows up at that kid's ice camp. So it's not a bad gig.
Right. Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
they're going to walk away with something, even if it's not knowledge. But the high school's going well. The high school kids themselves are spreading the word.
Okay.
You know, but yeah, if you know any high school or any high school kids, like I say, it doesn't have to be an official high school team like
right.
a basketball. I mean, some of them are at club level.
Right.
Some of them are just one guy says, "Hey, I'll be the coach. Let's go." Now, when you come to the qualifier or the national championship, the coach gets to go on the ice with the kids. Okay? They can help them any way they can help them other than fish. They can drill the next hole. So we call high school 12 years and up.
Okay.
Because you got
really?
middle
Yeah.
schools and stuff.
Right.
You know, and if you're on 2 feet ice in northern Minnesota, you don't want a 12-year-old hanging on an auger. So, yes, the coach can drill the next hole. He can't go Swiss cheese the place, run electronics and look for the fish.
Right.
But he can drill their next hole. Kid
Right.
standing next to him, drill, kid starts to fish, or drops electronics. Coach can turn and say, "Hey, here's what you're looking at." You know, we're there to teach. The coach is there to teach. You know? So it's... You just got to get the word.
Right.
You just
Yeah.
got to yell it to everybody that's got a kid that wants to go ice fishing.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
and half the bass teams up here, half of those guys ice fish.
Right. Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
they all aren't ice fishermen.
Sure. No.
But,
Understood. Well, maybe we'll get more Florida teams or Arizona or.
Well,
let's
you know,
work on Illinois though. I know we
mean,
want to try and get our.
Our farthest south that we run one is Indiana,
Okay.
and this year we lost the ice.
When was that?
It's going to be was supposed to be next weekend.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the ice did not appear.
Oh.
But that gets us to the Ozarks, because the Ozarks have ice for about 3 weeks. So there's ice fishermen there.
Okay.
New Mexico has ice fishermen up in the mountains. So you'd be surprised where we can get ice fishermen from.
Right. Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, the common thing you hear today is, well, all the kids do is sit on the couch and play their Xbox or, you know, whatever their games. Tell you, the kids that have been out ice fishing this year, at the national championship, we do it out of Mille Lacs, out of Isle Bay, out of a resort, McCoy's, because it's walkable. If you
Okay.
don't have a quad, you don't have a sled, we'll get you out there. It's not a 5-mile, you know, but it was slush. And it was cold. Those kids. Mary, from here,
Yeah.
was sitting there facing the wind. And I'm like, I'm just going to throw you a tip.
Yeah.
It's a little easier if you turn your back.
Yeah.
And she looks at me, and she's got long hair, and she wears it outside like a beard.
Yeah.
And it's covered in snow and ice, and she says, "But I have better luck facing the wind."
Well, there
and
you
it's
go.
like, you know what? You just keep going.
See, yeah.
I'm not telling you what to do. I was just making a suggestion. It might be a little warmer if you turned around and put the wind at your back.
Right.
But you want to talk about tough conditions.
Yeah.
And down in Okoboji, Iowa, they had a blizzard ice storm the day before.
Okay.
The kids came in before the ice storm because they wanted to fish. Well, it was ground out or white out ground blizzard on Saturday, and I'm sitting there going, we don't need to, there's a little. We're in a bay; it's somewhat protected, from the wind. It isn't, and those kids are like, we're going. I mean, we're either going to fish the tournament or we're going to go fish by ourselves.
Right. Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, the kids that are showing up to ice fish, they're ice fishermen.
Yeah.
They're tough.
That's good.
There's not a whole lot of Xbox on quitting in this and go sit on the couch.
This is their version of Xbox.
This is it.
Yeah.
Which, when you're watching the underwater cameras or the optics, it is like watching a video game.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I was thinking of when you were talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. You get them just train their minds to look at it in a different way. And,
Well,
and it's competitive in a different way as well, just like some of those games, but it engages their thinking, I guess.
yes.
So,
Well, you'd be surprised that we at the Nationals, at the championship, after the weigh-in on Saturday, we did a couple of videos. We do some Facebook Live with some touring pros, blah blah blah. We were talking about Okoboji and sight fishing, and how a bluegill will come in or a crappie. They'll come right up to that jig, open their mouth, flare their gills, and they'll suck it in and blow it out. And I don't care, spring bobber or anything else, unless you're sight fishing, you don't have the reaction time to pull that trigger.
Okay.
It just, you're going to be late.
Well,
the team that won sight fished.
Okay.
They listened, they drilled holes, and they sat there and watched, and they hammered them. And it was one of the resorts up there had told that, as a tournament fisherman, you're going to stop at the bait shops, and you're going to, what's going on out there?
Yeah.
If you see any locals, you're going to walk up and say what's biting, where they bite. I mean, you're gonna pump them, work them for any information. Well, they'd stopped. The kids had stopped at one of the bait shops, and the bait shop said, "Well, the fish aren't in the bay yet. It's the way the ice has come and the snow's come. They're just not in here." And I mean, you believe the local expert. I mean, you're here every day. Da 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 da.
Right.
So another team shows me their underwater footage. The fish, or the bay, is full of fish. But all the fish are underneath the weeds. They are right on the bottom. And they're showing, they recorded their underwater footage. And it's just fish. They couldn't get them to bite. Well, they were biting, but they didn't have the sensitivity to pick up the bite.
Right.
Well, we had talked about that on Saturday afternoon after the weigh-in about what sight fishing will do. Well, that team that
There
won
you go. Yeah.
Listened,
Applied,
and applied it, and they had great fish.
Yeah.
And they pulled them off from down below. So
That's
it was,
awesome.
so much for the tournament rumor.
Yeah, right.
There's
exactly.
no fish.
Yeah, right.
There's tons of fish.
Yeah, they're just hiding. You mentioned the age of 12 and up is kind of the high school division. What's the youngest age that you recall, someone being involved with the circuit? Have you had 12 or 13 or?
Well, my daughter at 6.
Okay. Well, yeah.
It's one of the greatest things in my lifetime was she was my tournament fisherman partner.
Yeah.
We drove across the country together, thousands of miles windshield time, and got to know each other. I mean, we had a tournament in Reedsburg, Wisconsin last weekend.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
She drove up from Omaha
Okay.
to be there.
Yeah.
Now, she was the youngest person ever put on Clam's pro staff.
Okay.
Back in the power stick days, where you had to have X amount of credibility, she's the youngest power stick that was ever there.
Okay.
She's been in tons of Cabela's and Ganners and Fleets, and she's done more seminars than the average 60-year-old, and she knows what she's doing.
Yeah. And is she still active fishing Omaha area and doing other things?
She does.
Yeah.
Got a job, just got out of college,
Okay,
so there's a little focus shift, but At the 2010 World Championships, the Russians made sure that Team USA knew that she was too young to fish for
Well,
Team
there you
USA. So one of the things is, Dad, I walk around and say, yeah, Russia's scared of my daughter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, do you remember back then, because you were talking about the Russian coach kind of, picking up certain things, how did the Russia team fare in that? Do you remember?
They finished, I'm going to say 7th.
Or? Okay.
But one of the interesting things there was Poland just at the weigh-in started cheering, and I'm sitting there going, okay, how much did they? They didn't turn in that big of a basket,
Right.
But what they did was they got in front of the Russians.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't mean anything to you and me,
Right.
without getting too sappy or too, we live in America,
Right.
okay? Russia occupied Poland for 34 years.
Okay.
They weren't nice. So if the Poles could get in front of the Russians,
That felt good.
there's a
Yeah.
whole lot of, yeah. And I had never had that international,
Right. Yeah.
but there's some animosity there.
Right, yeah.
They're highly, highly competitive. I was a zone commissioner. At the Worlds, they take a lake. They separate it into 5 zones. The
Okay.
zone is roughly the size of a football field.
Okay.
Okay, just to give you one angler from each country goes in.
Okay.
So you might have 14 people in each zone. And I was a zone commissioner, which means I was the rules official for that zone. And I'm watching, and the guy from Poland, is just on fire. He's just lighting it up, fish after fish. And they fish with palm rods, which don't have a lot of use in America, but there is some use for them.
Okay.
But there's no reel to it. You take out the line, it's very sensitive. It's got a real sensitive spring bobber because they are fishing for small fish. But over here, they were fishing for, well, the pole is just going nuts. He's fish after fish. And they got to keep it in their hand while they set it, and then they hand line it, and then they throw the rod so that the line doesn't get all tangled up. They unhook the fish, and then they pull the rod back to them, down, they're fishing again. It's the guys that can do it really fast, and it's all about efficiency.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So every time he threw the rod, the guy from Kazakhstan left his one hole over to his other. You're allowed 2 holes. You put your national flags on those holes. Those are your holes. They've got to be 5 meters from where the other guys, you can't drill somebody's butt off. Well, there's probably 300 Polish people that have come to watch. And they're screaming at me. Well, I don't speak Polish. I have no clue. The phone's going on. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
So, but even though I don't speak the language, there's certain vocal clues that you can tell they're not happy.
Okay. Sure.
So I'm sitting there trying to, why are these guys yelling at me? They want me
Right.
to do something. What's going on?
Right.
Well, it occurs to me that when the Polish guy threw his rod, that's when the Kazakhstan guy ran to the other side.
Okay.
He was trying to clip his line with his ice studs on his feet. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So
It's a defense.
now that's defensive fishing. Now is that allowed or not?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
So I got to
the
bring the
rules,
Russian.
yeah.
I got to bring the Russian umpire over.
Yeah.
Well, his English is no better than my Russian,
Right.
and neither one of us can speak Polish.
Right.
So we're sitting there, and I literally like,
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
and he figures out what I'm talking about,
Yeah. Right.
and he goes, "Nee." Well, I assume that's Russian for no.
Okay.
So I got to walk up to the Kazakhstan guy, stick my finger in his face, and
Yeah.
go, "Nee,"
Yeah.
and that stopped it.
Well, there you go.
So, you can communicate
Yeah.
without being able to speak languages.
Right, yeah.
You know?
And you learned a second language
Well,
while you were
second
there.
or third. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
Right, so
You
good
know?
stuff.
And
That's entertaining.
we talked about this before we flipped the camera on.
Yeah.
I'm only half as grumpy as I sound.
You okay? Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You're not grumpy.
Well, 89 as a goaltender,
Mm-hmm.
I took a puck dead to the throat.
Okay.
Stuffed my larynx into my breathing tube.
Mm.
I was dying. Could not breathe. Throw the blocker and trapper off, stick the thumbs in, wiggle, pull until I could breathe.
Wow.
And everybody goes, didn't it hurt? Well, hurt, die. Hurt, die.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going for hurt. I don't want to go for hurt, but it beats alternative B.
Mm-hmm.
So it took about 2 years to learn how to talk again.
No kidding. Wow.
So as tournament director, sometimes in the morning when I haven't spoke, I've still got to break the vocal cords loose.
Yeah.
And if I yak too long, you'll hear it going up and down and in and out. And,
Okay.
You know, I'm past puberty. You don't have to
Oh,
worry.
well, good.
You know,
Oh, nice. All
I've
right.
cleared
So you
that
can get in the
hurdle.
high school tournament.
I
then.
can, you know, yeah, they might
You're
want
clear.
to, yeah, they might want to check an age on that one. But I tell everybody it was the greatest weekend I had.
What was?
The weekend I took the puck in the throat.
Okay.
Because I was going to University of North Dakota and goaltending for a bunch of teams. And I ended up in Bismarck on a team. And because I did all the driving, I would pick other students up. Because as a college student, I need gas money. You know, come on, cough up a couple of bucks so I can, you know, go to my next hockey venture.
Yeah.
So I'm supposed to pick this girl up. Hadn't met her. I can't talk. I have no vocal cords. They are smashed. So I show up at a house with a sheet of paper. And I'm cut on the outside. I'm black and blue, and you know I'm
Right, yeah.
I'm probably not presenting all that well.
Yeah. And can't even speak Polish.
you can't speak Polish and Russian's out of the equation.
And girl comes to the door. I don't know. I haven't been there before. I don't know who she is.
Right. Give her a note.
She reads the thing, and she kind of giggles and laughs. Well, I'm an injured hockey player. I ain't up for giggles and laughs. I'm ready to just get in the car and, you know, you need to get to Grand Forks?
Yeah.
Have a good time thumbing. 'Cause
Well, another girl comes because she hears this one laughing. And she reads the note. Well, now they're both kind of giggling and laughing. Then the third one comes. She reads it, steps out, because I haven't been invited in yet. I'm standing on the stoop.
Okay.
You know, she gives me a big hug. Well, that was 29 years ago. We've been married ever since.
There you go.
So it was a great weekend.
Good stuff.
You know,
Yeah.
the first two were the younger sisters laughing about the geek that's picking up their sister.
Right.
They thought at this time I actually knew her or
Oh.
had, you know, that this was a date. Or it was like,
Right.
I don't know any of you people.
I'm sure you look
Yeah.
back and laugh with the family on that one.
Well,
huh?
yeah.
That's
Well,
good.
when I'm with the guys, I say, you know, when I met her, I couldn't get a word in edgewise, and I still can't.
Right.
When I'm telling the truth, I couldn't talk when I met her, so I didn't screw it up.
There you go. Yeah, see? That
Ni-
all worked out
nice
all
and
right.
smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So
good stuff.
that's been.
So did she go on that journey with you that day, or?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
so
drove
there you
back.
go.
We drove back, and this was before cell phones, before
Okay.
texting. And she would ask me a question. Well, I couldn't talk, so I had to give her a, you know, put a yes and a no, and I'd check, you know. And then she wrote me a question, and I grabbed it and said, "You can talk. Why are you writing?"
Yeah, right. There you go. I can hear it too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So now you enjoyed winter sports. You played hockey. Did you ice fish a lot growing up then yourself? And was there always a passion for it or no?
No.
No?
I ice fished a couple of times with my dad
Okay.
up in North Dakota. He died when I was young. We were in the lumber business,
Okay.
retail lumber, of all things. And got out of the lumber business. Well, in the lumber business, I was put on the board of directors for retail lumbermen because of aggressive marketing.
Okay.
So I go to my first board meeting, 22 years old, and they held it on a golf course. I didn't golf. I didn't have time for golf.
Yeah.
At that time, golf was, the largest waste of acreage. It's pasture pool. I did not have a high opinion of golf
There
at
you
that
go.
time.
Yeah.
But I also don't have the nature of being shut out or ignored at a meeting. So I came back at that time, mine in North Dakota, and called up a high school buddy that I knew golfed and said, take me out, show me how to do this.
Yeah.
So, up at 5 in the morning, out to the golf course, get a set of rental clubs that Byron Nelson, I think, played back in the third. I mean, these things were garbage. Shot a smooth 45
Okay.
for 9 holes. And went to work. Lunchtime, ran up to the sporting goods shop, bought a set of K28 Wilsons.
Okay.
5:30, got off work, ran back to the golf course, walked into the pro shop where the pro was now there, because he wasn't there at 5 in the morning. He had the kids open it up. And started talking to him and realized that I shouldn't have bought my clubs from a sporting goods shop. I should buy my stuff from an expert.
From a pro shop.
I mean,
yeah.
you buy your tackle at a tackle shop,
Yeah.
So anyway, I realized an error. So I didn't tell him I had a set of K28s, but I bought a set of Hogan radials. Sold the K28s, never did hit them, but I bought them from the pro because I knew I needed his help.
Right.
3 weeks later, I bought my third set of clubs, and 2 years after that, I was out of the lumber business and had
Sold all your clubs.
No, I went to went to University of North Dakota
Okay.
and got there as an older than average student.
Yeah.
As you have figured out in dealing with me, I can't do something a little bit. If I'm in, I'm in. Was the assistant coach at UND's golf team for 3 years while I was there.
Okay.
And did the hockey thing, met the girls. She went to Nevada. I followed. I'm sitting in a town with 5 casinos and a golf course. I'm really not a casino kind of guy. Went to work at the golf course, got in the PGA, played the mini tours.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Was the assistant of the year for the PGA out of the Utah section in 1998.
Okay.
Once again, just proving I can't do something a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Went to Colorado, opened a golf course for some investors, moved to Minnesota, opened a golf course for some other investors, was their general manager, director of golf, had the winters off, and a buddy up in Bemidji said, come on up to Red Lake and we're going to go ice fishing for crappies. Well, what the heck's a crappie and where's Red Lake? I just moved to Minnesota. I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, Red Lake in the late 90s and into the 2000s was the crappie capital of the world.
Really? Okay.
It is tribal water, and they used gill nets, and they pulled all the walleyes out. There was nothing to stop the crappie boom. And they had 2 or 3 years of absolute fantastic spawn for crappies. The airplanes that flew over there would report the crappie school as 3/4 of a mile wide and 7 miles long. Every one of those things were 14, 15, and 16 inches. It was ridiculous. That was my first exposure to crappie fishing. Well, you go up there and it's just, the school comes through and you can't catch them fast enough.
Right, yeah.
I mean, they're so hungry, they're going to bite on a toenail down there. So you're pulling up slab after slab after slab. You think that's what crappie fishing is.
Yeah.
Right. You have no concept of how hard it can be and how finicky these things were, it was nuts.
Right.
I mean, the non-tribal side of Red Lake is like 90 square miles.
Is it still that good of a fishery today, or is it tailed off a little bit?
DNR wanted it back to walleyes. So
Okay.
they put in somewhere around, every year they put in 50 to 80 million fry. Well, after 1 billion fry in that lake, I don't know that you catch walleyes there. You just go up and take the walleyes. I mean, they bite.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantastic walleye
Wow,
fishery.
interesting.
You know, but the crappies, they're there. They're just not there in that number.
Right.
But they are still big.
Now, I caught when you were talking early on about the different locations you go to. Did I hear you say that one of the tournaments is a trout tournament?
We go out to Montana.
Okay.
That's as far west. In a perfect world, I would have a West, a Central, and an East division.
Okay.
Because it's tough to get from West Yellowstone, Montana to Ohio or New York.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been to Vermont. So anyway, we're out on Lake Hebgen out of West Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bucket list fishery.
Okay.
If you have never fished rainbows, cuts, cut bows, or browns under the ice, you got to go. The browns are down low, and they're a natural to the lake, so tournament-wise, you can't bring one in. But you could bring one in as a fisherman, so, you know, and they're monsters. I mean, you're talking upwards of 12, 13-pound brown trout.
Okay.
I mean, they're huge. All of your, you know, your rainbows are in the 3.5, 4 pound. You know, they're rainbow trout. They're not the little stream trout that we run around in Wisconsin and Minnesota chasing. I mean, but when they're aggressive, and when they hit, they're going to run like a freight train, probably 3 or 4 times before you're going to get them. And if you try,
fun.
oh, it's a blast.
Yeah.
And you come out of, I mean, I come across, get into Bozeman, and then you go up the Gallatin Pass, and it's 89 miles. Well, it's 60 miles an hour. It should take you an hour and a half.
Yep.
All right. Give yourself 4 or 5.
There you go.
Because you're going up and you got the Gallatin River running.
Okay.
It's the winter. You got the sheer granite walls of the Rockies with the river running. It's picture, and they got turnouts about every half mile. So you're driving and, you know, coming out of Minnesota or North Dakota, it's flat land, and you're looking at this going, holy crap, I got to get this picture.
Right.
You know, click, click, click. Well, you drive another quarter mile, and it's even better.
Right,
Click,
yeah.
click, click. You drive another quarter mile. Click, click, click. You know, then I've got pictures with bighorn sheep with a curl and a half right out the suburban window.
Right. Yeah.
So it's click, click, click. You know,
Yeah.
you got bison, you got elk, you got moose. I mean,
Yeah.
you're taking more pictures. So give yourself some time to get to West Yellowstone out of
Right.
Bozeman.
Yeah. And how far from Bozeman is that?
Bozeman to West Yellowstone is 89 miles.
89 miles. All right.
And
So-
give yourself 4 hours because
all
it's
right.
nothing but picture city.
All
It's
right.
just click, 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 and
Sounds.
I mean and then
I know of some people in Bozeman. Shout out to the Shergs.
there you go.
So, but
well, West Yellowstone is a snowmobile capital.
okay.
They only plow the road coming in and out to Idaho.
Okay.
The entire town, you just drive your sleds on.
Okay.
It's a winter wonderland.
Yeah.
It's just cool. The people are fantastic. They
Mm-hmm.
love the fishermen because they don't want to rely totally on snowmobiles. So they're trying to develop the fishing aspect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's one of the things the N.A.I.F.C does is bring a focal point to whatever community they're in because we got a lot of people that follow. A lot of people want to know where the touring pros are fishing.
Right,
You know, I mean,
yeah.
it's part of the tourism game. So they use us.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You got a lot of following with all that. So, how many members are there within the whole circuit then, and people that
We
are
got
involved?
about 2,600 teams.
Okay.
2-person teams.
Okay.
Have
Wow.
registered.
Okay.
You know,
That's-
and I mean, tournament fishing is like anything else.
Uh-huh.
You know, you're in it pretty hot and heavy for 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then the kid shows up. Mom says, you got to stick around
Yeah.
until Junior gets at least out of diapers.
Sure.
So you get people to, you know, I mean, you change jobs, you do this, you
Sure.
know, I mean,
life happens. Yep.
stuff
to
happens.
keep doing it, but
You
you
know.
obviously travel. You're on the run all the time. It sounds like.
I'm on the road 32 out of 52 weeks
Okay. Yeah.
between open water and ice.
Yeah, in another podcast series, we'd love to have you back and talk about some of the walleye or bass or open water stuff, and kind of focus on some of that. But with the N.A.I.F.C here in Illinois, this is kind of how many more qualifiers do you have up until the championship at
We
this
got
point?
3 left.
3 left.
After this.
Okay.
4 counting this weekend.
Okay.
But
And
you got a lot of guys that come out of here that want to make the championship.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know? And like I say, they love the lake.
Absolutely,
You
yep.
know?
Yep, and we're sponsoring the Begley team now, which you probably know. So they're active and kind of following and trying
They're
to get
getting
out.
better
so.
and better and better and
Yep.
better. Like I say, you learn something every time you
Yeah,
go out.
right.
2006, back in the ice team days,
Yeah.
we had a tournament. The championship was on Lake Carlos,
Okay.
outside of Alexandria, Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
And I think they limit their championship back then to 50 teams.
Okay.
So in theory, you had 50 of the best teams in the nation.
Yeah.
Over half of those teams in 5 days of pre-fishing and 2 days of tournament fishing never got a bite.
Mm.
And what had happened is the lake iced over because you hold the championship the week before Christmas.
Okay.
The high school's the week after Christmas. The regular one is the week before Christmas. Well, the lake had opened up in the middle because it's 190 feet deep. And deep water holds heat.
Okay.
So yes, it was ice, but the middle opened up.
Mm-hmm.
Then the wind came, and we were up in this North Bay was our boundary.
Mm-hmm.
The wind came, started blowing over the open water. Well, the coldest
Opening
water
up
in the
more,
lake is
yeah.
on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
The warmest water is down deep.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically set a current up into that bay
Mm-hmm.
of nothing but cold water.
Okay.
And I'd run around up there, drilling holes all the way around, running a thermometer, trying to find where the warmest water was.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like 32.9,
Mm-hmm.
which is just above freezing. I mean, there was no 36s. There were,
Right.
and the fish had swam into the weeds, and they were sitting in the weeds.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't even moving their pectoral fins. These fish were shut down.
Right.
And it was on 8 inches of clear ice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they can see you. Anybody that thinks noise and shadows don't affect fish don't understand the equation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you moved, those fish just went. So Greta and I were one of the teams that didn't catch fish.
Mm.
And everybody was just screaming at their tournament director about, this should be on a different lake, this lake stinks, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the bottom line comes down to fish better.
Mm-hmm.
Figure it out.
Right.
Well, we leave Sunday, no fish, no bites. I'd been there a week,
Mm-hmm.
and driving home, I got a 9-year-old, Dad, I'm hungry. Kids, you got to feed them.
Mm-hmm.
So we wheel into Pizza Hut.
You've got a good memory with all this.
Well, it's a scar. So we go in, Pizza Hut, and of course the hostess meets you. You get the menu, and the kid gets the coloring crayon in the box. And we go sit down, and Greta looks at me and says, "What could we done better?"
Mm-hmm.
Said, "I'll write one down, then you give me one. Then I'll write one. Then you give me one. Then I'll write one."
Mm-hmm.
We had 34 things on that sheet
no
of
kidding,
paper.
Really? Yeah.
Okay, but that's one of the tricks.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things you learn in tournament
Sure.
fishing. Just like the football teams go review film.
Right.
The Army reviews the battle scene.
Right.
Okay, when you're done fishing and you're driving home,
Right.
especially with your kids,
Right.
you talk about what happened during the day.
Sure.
What did we do right? What did we do wrong?
How can we get
And
better?
that makes your team better. You're actually improving, and we've done that ever since. It's okay. We did this. Well, that was a mistake.
Right. Well, it
You know.
goes back to what you kind of started with early on when you were saying a lot of the innovators are from the circuit here. They're always thinking, how can we improve? What could we have done differently? And
Yep.
what needs to be, better to
Yeah.
catch more fish. So,
Well,
quick question with the circuit is, I had somebody in just yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, and they were asking, can somebody just sign up for this
Oh, yeah.
in terms
I mean-
of just fishing a single event to participate to try and
Absolutely.
win that weekend?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I didn't really know
Yeah.
the answer. I
There-
said I thought
there's
you could, but I
the-
told them to look on the website.
yeah. you talk about guys that are on the circuit,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and you refer to them as professional ice fishermen. There's probably one professional ice fisherman in the world, and that's Gans.
Okay.
Everybody else has a second or third job to support their habit. Okay, a lot of teams are, a lot of locals are intimidated by people that travel. I'm telling you, the locals have the upper
Well,
hand.
that's what you were saying. Yeah, look at the results. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they know the lake. All right, and there are just as good fishermen in Antioch Fishing Channel as there are on the circuit. These guys show up, these guys stay home. That's the only difference.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
The competitive spirit is firing these guys, and these guys are fishing for fun. There's
Right.
nothing. I mean, this isn't wrong.
Right. Yeah.
It's
right.
just a different. These guys can compete.
Right.
All they got to do is get off the couch.
Right. Yeah.
And there's no, I mean, you want to join? You go to N.A.I.F.C.com, hit registration, fill it out, hit the
Right.
button.
Yeah.
You're in.
Right, and we have ways, locally here with our own tournaments. You'll have a lot of those guys, in as well. But we can try and promote it, just for future years, in terms
Right.
of just trying to get more of a localized crowd and
Right.
trying to promote this as a
Well,
fishing
I
tournament.
mean,
and,
in a perfect world, there'd be 20 or 30 traveling teams, and there'd be 20 or 30 local teams.
Yeah.
And locals within 100 miles.
And do you see that a lot when you go state to state? Is
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
there's a lot of that, yeah.
At the tournaments that work well. I mean, Montana, it's like 3 traveling teams and 70 local teams.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I mean, and they come out of Idaho and Utah. They don't have this out there.
Okay.
I mean, the
It's a
Midwest
craze,
is.
huh? Yeah,
I mean,
they get excited for it.
we have stuff. I mean, the first year I went out to Montana, one of the phone calls was, "Well, can I use a chainsaw?" For what?
I mean,
Yeah,
just
depends.
what exactly are you using?
Well, we don't have augers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah. I mean,
Sure.
as long as
Just
it's
don't
got
cut
a-
the other people's line.
Well, yeah, we got a safety factor here, but
Yeah.
if that's, if I could have brought a semi-load of augers and a semi-load of electronics the first year out there, we'd have sold them all
Okay. Yeah.
because they don't have it. They're catching up now,
Yeah.
but we've been out there for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years now.
Right, yeah.
So
They've come to the seminars. They picked up some knowledge.
Right.
and there's good fishermen out there too.
Yeah. Yep.
The
Now, what about the Worlds? Is there any? Are the Worlds still going on? I know you talked about past years.
To get on, yeah, the Worlds are going on.
Okay.
I think they were in Lithuania this year, but
Okay.
they just canceled it because they don't have any ice, so they're
Okay.
trying to get it moved either to Finland or Sweden. But Team USA probably won't make it because they can't get travel plans that quick.
Okay. Okay.
But
Is that an every year thing, or
Yeah.
how, it is?
Yeah,
Really? Huh? I
one
didn't
tournament
realize
a
that.
year.
No kidding. Okay.
Well, you've got Chad Schwab will be here this weekend. He
Okay.
signed up. He is the bronze medalist for the world in 2013.
No kidding.
Through his history of fishing for Team USA, I believe he has the most points gathered.
Wow.
I mean, you've got good fishermen coming into this. But at the Worlds, it shifts country to country. They were in Kazakhstan last year, and they were on 48 inches ice.
Okay.
The Worlds, there's no power.
Oh.
That's a hand
That's
auger.
awesome. Yeah.
Now, when you see Chad this weekend,
Yeah.
they were thinking he was going to have to stand on a box.
That's a good.
to start that auger because he's vertically challenged.
Yeah,
He's not skill challenged. He's one of the best there are in the
That's
world.
funny. Yeah.
But
48 inches of ice.
48 to 52 inches ice in Kazakhstan, depending on now. Myron Gilbert out of Michigan, he's team captain for USA.
Okay.
He can go through 30 inches of ice in about
Okay.
7 seconds
Wow.
with a hand auger.
No kidding. Yeah.
And I've got an auger out in my trailer that developed with Strike Master. It's I call it a Team USA auger. They used it. You can't find them. I can cut hand cut with that thing as fast as anybody can cut with power.
Maybe we do a competition here one day. I'd love to see that.
We could do that.
Yeah.
One of the things I do with the kids' camps, we have speed reeling contests. How fast can you reel? And fish slides across the floor and up a ramp and hits the bottom of a tip up in a bucket, and the flag goes up so you can race.
Yep.
But I also have a 5-gallon bucket that cut a hole, put a sleeve in. So I got a metal sleeve there. Down in the bucket is the front spindle off a compact car.
Okay.
Cut the fluting off an old auger, welded that to the spindle. So hooked a car battery or a Vex battery up to a car horn. And we teach the kids that you have to keep the auger straight up and down. And if you tip it, it's like the game operation. It honks at you.
So there you go.
It's
That's
pretty
good. Yeah.
So you get the kids, cranking on this.
Sure.
Well, in Europe, in the U.S., you got the handle up here and you crank.
Okay.
This is your stabilizer.
Yeah.
You're using one arm.
Right.
Over there, offset handles and both arms are cranking. So we can get a lot more RPM and a lot more dig. You can shim the bottom of those blades to get a little more bite if you got the torque to.
Yeah.
So there's like in anything else, there's tricks to the trade.
Absolutely. Yeah. Having the right equipment goes a long way.
You hang out.
So, with that being said, too, who are some of the sponsors of the circuit that kind of support you guys?
Aquaview.
Okay.
St. Croix.
Okay.
And N.A.F.C. has they sponsor the kids clinic.
Okay.
And they have their power sticks, their pro staff comes to teach the kids on the ice. So that's manpower, which means a lot. I mean, you never know. I mean, we've had kids clinics where there's one kid that shows up. We had one kids clinic up in Chippewa Falls that had 384 kids show up.
Wow.
And when you
It's a big family.
you figure a parent and 3/4 per kid, because a lot of times 2 parents come, but sometimes there's just one. You had an additional 300 parents with those 384 kids. I mean, it was a big event.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you never know.
Bigger than the field.
Well, oh yeah,
So-
but you never know. I mean, the weather, what's going on in town.
Sure, yeah.
We've wheeled into towns, and they're like, "Oh man, we got 2 basketball tournaments, a hockey tournament, a wrestling tournament."
Yeah.
Okay.
Schedules are full. Yep.
Yeah, that's just what reality is in today. Just
Sure.
come when you can come.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the nice part, if you're able to get more of the youth coming in, not only do they learn it at a younger age and hopefully get, kind of hooked onto it, but then you start getting better results for the, the high school
the
division.
high school, and it
and it
goes.
just kind of snowballs over time.
I mean,
so.
we'll come into a community, and like if you wanted it, or if the community, we've gone into the schools on Fridays,
Right.
You know,
That's
because
one
we're
thing
not
we
doing
could do
it.
out here and try
We just go right into. We go right into schools and put presentations on,
Yeah.
and we can go classroom to classroom, or we can set up in the gym, and everybody can come in, and we've got the jigging tubes, and we can.
Sounds like you've done this before.
Done it a few.
Yeah,
Teaching the kids is the most fun. I mean,
Yeah.
when a kid catches his first fish, I don't care what size it is, it's going home. I got to show mom.
Yeah, right.
And you're looking at a bluegill like this.
Yeah.
One, you're impressed
Like
they
the
can
ones from
catch
Poland.
it. Yeah, and it's just like, well, okay, you can, it's your fish. You
Yeah.
can do what you want,
Yeah.
but it is fantastic to watch kids catch their first fish. It really is.
Yeah.
It's what got us. I mean, teaching it, the competition is what got us into it. You asked way back when. Well, in 2007, trap attacks were still going.
Okay.
And we were at the 2007 National Championship, and they had the 2008 schedule all up. But in December, right after Christmas, the site went black, and they just said, we're not doing it anymore. Well, Greta looks at me and like, what are we going to do? Well, there were 5 or 6 guys, and we got together, and we just said, well, let's form up the N.A.I.F.C.
That's how it started, huh?
That's how it started.
No kidding. Yeah.
So people look at me and said, how did you start this? Well, bottom line, for the love of my daughter.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, I did it because my daughter wanted me to
something
do it.
to do, right?
You know?
Yeah.
And she, all through high school, I mean, she was a competitive swimmer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, competition rolls in the family. My wife's a 14-time All-American swimmer.
Okay.
Greta and Karen, my youngest daughter, they both swam. And Greta ended up down the University of Nebraska in Omaha and swam on a D1 scholarship. You know, she's a competitive person.
Yeah.
But all through high school, she went to every tournament that I was running. She was there running the computers, going out on the ice, and she would do the kids' camp, you know, because I guarantee you the kids want to listen to her a heck of a lot more than they want to listen to me.
With your scary voice.
With my scary voice, yeah.
So.
And it's getting dry, so I'm going to take a slug.
There you go.
You carry it for a minute.
So, good stuff. Well, what the location for the championship and the finals and all that, is that always the same place every year, or does that change up?
We've moved it around. We were 4 years up in Rylander.
Okay.
And then we were like 4 years at McCoy's on Mille Lacs. And then we shifted over to Pinehurst out of N.A.F.C. Can't say it, but out of Minnesota, north of Detroit Lakes, about an hour.
Close to home for you, though, right?
And but you know, keeps it
Closer.
in the state.
Yeah,
Closer.
exactly.
There's nothing close, but you know, and we're going to keep it at Pinehurst for quite a while because they've got, I don't know how many lakes, but they've probably got 10 lakes that we can rotate around. So we're not, you know, because if you go to the same lake year after year after year, then some of the new teams are like, well, I can't beat that team. They've been on that water 6 years in a row. You know, it's like trying to beat the home cooking. Well, we just keep rotating them around.
Okay.
You know, so it's, and they're all fantastic lakes. I mean, they're all good lakes.
Okay.
You know. So,
have you ever done a tournament where it's almost like a blind draw as to what lake you're going to be on that particular circuit, or no?
well, if you're a tournament angler,
Yeah.
I can't fool you
Okay.
because I got to pull a permit.
Oh, okay.
And you're just going to go on XYZ
Sure,
website.
yeah.
You're going to go,
Just curious, yeah.
No,
I was thinking of a
no,
way of offsetting
no,
the home field thing.
I could cough up $200 a permit and buy 5 permits.
Right, there you go.
And say,
Not worth
okay,
it.
yeah, it's one of those
So,
deals.
Yeah, I get it.
And, you know, I mean, one of the things with the N.A.I.F.C tournament, you know, people, like I say, we bring them in. A lot of times we have tourism as the host. Here, you're the host, okay? But we have a chamber or a tourism that hosts us because of the amount of dollars that a tournament can bring into a community.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, they're going to buy gas, they're going to buy food, they got to get hotels. Somebody's trailer is going to break. You know, last year here, my DEF went out of the diesel. So I was $1,000 down at the Chevy dealership.
Okay.
You know, so dollars get spent. Now, a local tournament, it's good for the community, it gets people out, but the money's coming out of your right pocket going into the left pocket. Where these tournament guys, you got guys here from Minnesota, you got them from Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, you know, South Dakota. I mean, it's outside money coming into the community.
Right.
You know, lost the train, it derailed.
Well, no, but it's...
I mean, it's part of what, you know, the N.A.I.F.C brings. Now, there have been teams that have been on this ice since you've had ice.
Oh, okay.
They're not going to walk in and say, hey, I'm a tournament team and I'm here gathering. I mean, they don't want you to know they're out there. But they will swing through, check it for a day, 2 days.
Right.
You know, they will come here in the summertime and run their boats with those electronics so they can map
Doing
the
their
lake
homework,
better.
yeah.
So
it makes...
we may only fish one weekend,
Right.
but we impact the community literally all year long.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I never realized that.
I mean, it was, we had a tournament up in Menominee, and you got the St. Paul Ice Show the first weekend in December. And we had teams coming from Michigan and to go to the ice show. Well, they brought their boats and pushed them over the skim ice on the shore of Menominee so that they could go out and map the lake. I mean, these guys are hard. I mean, they're just they're fishermen.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we're all nuts. You know, to some degree.
Right. Sure.
You know, so it's we had one year where we weren't announcing where the championship was yet,
Okay.
and it was. I mean, it's either going to be in Wisconsin, North Dakota, or Minnesota because that's where your
ice.
first ice is.
Right. Yep.
I mean, it's hard to run a December championship in Indiana, and it ain't going to happen.
Right.
You know, and the closer to the Great Lakes you get, the more they hold heat. So the chances of trying to hold one up in that area is slim and none. You got to get out in the plains, you know. So we had one guy. Well, where are you going to hold tournament? And at that time, Mike McNett was my partner. He lives down the Lombard, Chicago area. And I had just talked to him about what we can't say because we don't have a contract with anybody yet. Well, all of a sudden on Facebook, it's championship is going to be held in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. So I called Mike up and I'm like, we just talked.
Right.
He's like, I didn't tell anybody. I thought you said something. I said, well, I didn't tell anybody. You know, what's going on? Well, we get a hold of this guy.
Yeah.
How did you know this? He said, well, I just got the phone book out for Wisconsin and I started calling every chamber. And he'd called every A, B, C, D, blah, 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 all the way up. He called Rhinelander and all he was asking the chamber members was, has anybody from the N.A.I.F.C been in? And when the receptionist said yes, he went on and said, championships in Rhinelander.
Yeah.
You know? So it was that's how hardcore these guys
Yeah.
are.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
You know?
So if people want to learn more about trying to find information about the circuit, how do you suggest they reach out?
N.A.I.F.C.com.
Okay.
That's our website.
Okay.
If they want to register for a tournament, click on registration, just follow it through.
They can do it right on the line. Huh?
Yeah, if they want to
Perfect.
see what's going on and keep up to date, N.A.I.F.C's Facebook page is, you know, we post all the pictures and results and commentary is on there, so they can follow us on that or
Okay.
hit the website,
Okay.
you know.
And then I'm sure your contact, email,
My
phone
contact
number, all
is
that's
my
public
email,
and available.
yeah.
Yep.
You know, jbakersports@hotmail.com and
There you go.
612-308-4858.
Sounds like you know all that info.
I've given that out a few times. It's
Yeah.
not a secret. It's right there on the website.
Good deal. Well, we always enjoy having you and the whole circuit here and look forward to it every year. So we want to do what we can to kind of support and also, you know, help grow it. So,
Well, it's a great place to be.
yeah.
We're glad to be here and
So
always enjoy it.
thank you much. Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again to Twisted Ties and Jigs for the sponsor in the show. And and I'd love to be on the other end of the fishing tournament talking about results, but we ain't going to find that out for a couple days here.
days.
So so to get those results, I guess go to the N.A.I.F.C website and you'll see how everyone did here in Channel Lake.
We try and Facebook Live the weigh-ins.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
you
yeah.
know. So
Yep.
again, hit the
Yeah.
N.A.I.F.C Facebook page, and
Yep.
you can
And
follow
see
us
some of
across the
that.
country.
Sounds good. Later, fishes. We'll see you next time on the Musky Tales podcast. Thanks for joining us.